Thoughts on kind of what's moving forward for this league and where you hope it continues to grow to?
Well, obviously, like, people respect people with zeros at the end of their checks. Like, let's just be honest. Like, there's respect element of things when you walk into a room if you have zeros behind your check. And so I feel like in order for the WNBA to be reputable and to be respected, you have to have zeros behind your check. And with that being said, a number of zeros behind your check. And that has crossed WNBA off the list for a number of years just because of that.
That pause right there. That's the sound of someone realizing they just stepped into the most contentious conversation in women's basketball. Because what Candace Parker is about to say in this clip has been making waves across the WNBA community, and not everyone agrees with her take. This interview dropped from all the smoke just as CBA negotiations hit their breaking point, and the timing couldn't be more deliberate. So let's break down what she actually said versus what the league needs to hear.
Continues to grow to?
Well, obviously, like, people respect people with zeros at the end of their checks. Like, let's just be honest. Like, there's respect element of things when you walk into a room if you have zeros behind your check. And so I feel like in order for the WNBA to be reputable and to be respected, you have to have zeros behind your check. And with that being said, a number of zeros behind your check. And that has crossed WNBA off the list for a number of years just because of that.
Stop right there. Respect equals zeros on a paycheck. That's her opening argument, and it's already problematic. Because here's what she's actually claiming. If WNBA players made millions, suddenly the jokes would stop, the disrespect would end, and the league would be taken seriously. But we have a perfect test case for this theory, and it completely contradicts her point. Remember when Diana Taurasi skipped an entire WNBA season in her prime to play in Russia for $1 million? The league didn't panic. Viewership didn't tank. Nothing changed. The WNBA just kept operating exactly as it had before their biggest star left for more money overseas.
I understand what Candace is saying from a societal standpoint. Like, unfortunately, if you have more money, sometimes people are more likely to respect you or are kinder to you. However, when it comes to the WNBA, I don't think adding more zeros at the end of their check is going to make people respect them. Like, the respect is going to be earned from the product that is on the court. And I also don't think that that's the greatest argument when it comes to the CBA negotiations. Like, imagine going to your boss and being like, I need to be paid more because if I'm paid more and people know that I'm getting paid more, then they're going to respect me. Do you guys know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that that's the best argument to make. I think the thought process should be, we should be getting paid more. The players should be getting paid more because the product on the court is exceptional, because the viewership is up, because attendance is up. Like, those are the things that they should be.
Now she's connecting salary to endorsement deals, and this is where the argument gets even shakier. She mentions Paige Bueckers having more followers than Jalen Suggs, suggesting that should translate to equal pay. But social media followers don't equal viewership. And viewership is what actually matters. Angel Reese has more followers than Caitlin Clark, significantly more. But when you look at actual TV ratings and arena attendance, the Indiana Fever with Clark absolutely demolished the Chicago Sky in every measurable category. Brands don't care about your Instagram count. They care about how many people will actually watch you play basketball.
But you're giving coaches, I've never heard of a league where the coach is paid more than the best player. I have never, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know.
The best player on the team is going to make more than the head coach. Yes. So with all of these owners that are saying, or the WNBA in general that's saying we can't play players that, then how are you finding this for coaches is what would be my first question in the CBA negotiations. But
all right, there's a couple things to break down here. Let's first talk about the salaries and her saying that the women just need to wait. So I actually looked up what the average salary was in 1975, which was the 30th season in the NBA. So as you guys know, the NBA is like in its 80 something season. The WNBA will be going into their 30th season, seeing as if the 30th season happens and they figure out the CBA. So in 1975 in the NBA, the estimated average player salary was around $50,000. This figure would be roughly $270,000 in today's money when adjusted for inflation. So
And here's where we need to inject some actual numbers into this conversation, because emotions are running high, but facts matter. I looked up the NBA's average salary during their 30th season, which is exactly where the WNBA is right now. In 1975, NBA players averaged around $50,000, adjusted for inflation. That's $270,000 in today's money. The WNBA's new proposal puts the average salary at $500,000. That's almost double what NBA players were making at the same stage of league development. The maximum salary jumps to over $1 million, compared to last season's max of $224,000. The minimum salary would be what last year's maximum was. These aren't small increases. This is a massive financial restructuring.
Be my first question in the CBA negotiations, but
all right, there's a couple things to break down here. Let's first talk about the salaries and her saying that the women just need to wait. So I actually looked up what the average salary was in 1975, which was the 30th season in the NBA. So as you guys know, the NBA is like in its 80-something season. The WNBA will be going into their 30th season, seeing as if the 30th season happens and they figure out the CBA. So in 1975 in the NBA, the estimated average player salary was around $50,000. This figure would be roughly $270,000 in today's money when adjusted for inflation. So
Now let's address her point about coaches making more than players, because this comparison requires context that she's not providing. The coaches earning over $1 million, like Nate Tibbetts and Becky Hammon, didn't come from the WNBA system. They came from the NBA. Tibbetts was an assistant coach for 3 different NBA teams. Hammon worked directly under Greg Popovich, arguably the greatest coach in basketball history. To pull these coaches away from the premier basketball league in the world, you have to pay them premier money. And guess what? It worked. Hammon won a championship. Tibbetts made the finals. These weren't random hires. These were strategic investments that paid immediate dividends.
it's impacting from top to bottom, and I'm just grateful for social media because I think numbers don't lie.
Transparency.
And there's transparency, and you see with NIL how much somebody is worth, coming out of school.
I also don't love this argument because social media followers don't translate to viewership and attendance. Like, even if you look at Angel Reese is the most followed WNBA player. She has more social media followers than Caitlin Clark. But if you look at viewership and attendance for the Indiana Fever versus the Chicago Sky, the Indiana Fever wipes the floor with them in literally every category. And your social media followers also don't equate to your productivity on the court. Like, the WNBA owners, the coaches, the league is more concerned about how you play on the court, how much you can contribute, what kind of championships you can bring to the organization than they do about social media followers. So yes, I understand what she's saying. If they were making more, maybe they would be able to get more off-court endorsement deals, but that's also not a good argument because the owners don't care. Like, again, imagine going to your boss and being like, I need to get paid more because since I'm not getting paid.
This part about playing overseas reveals the real structural problem with the WNBA. And it's not just about money. Candace talks about Russia paying her more, giving her Rolexes and black diamonds, providing chefs and drivers and charter flights. She was treated like a professional athlete over there. But here's what she's not saying. The WNBA season is barely 4 months long. You don't even hit 6 months unless you make the finals. The league was never set up to be a year-round commitment. It was designed as a summer league when no other sports were competing for attention. Players were expected to go overseas during the off-season from day one. That's not a bug in the system. That was the original design.
So much here, I'm not able to make more money from Adidas, Nike, McDonald's, or whoever the brand sponsor is on social media. It's like, that's not a good argument. Like, the performance is the argument. So yes, social media numbers are great for these individual players, but when it comes down to talking about the CBA, like, sports is one of the only things still that is not affected by how much social media influence a player has. It is measured by how well you perform on the court, like how good of a basketball player you are, period. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to this next part.
You used to have, and you kind of just touched on it, the WNBA wasn't necessarily your high, you had to go make your money in the off season overseas.
Yep.
What was that like? I mean, that's basketball pretty much year round. The one thing that everyone wanted to be is in the W in the States and have a strong league. We're still trying to get that there. You had to really go make your money overseas.
Yeah, my summer job was the WNBA. I mean, I played the WNBA 100% because I loved the game and I wanted to play, and the ball was bouncing. I wanted to play in front of people that,
Spoke English?
Yeah, spoke English and all those things. made my marketing endorsements Adidas and Gatorade and, you know, that type of thing. But it was overseas where like I take care of my family, you know, and I mean.
And this is where Candace actually makes her strongest point, even if she doesn't fully develop it. She mentions her daughter's first school being in Russia, speaking Russian, living that life overseas. That's not sustainable if you want the WNBA to be the Premier League. But the solution isn't just throwing more money at players. The solution is fundamentally restructuring how the league operates. The season needs to be longer. It needs to run through November, maybe December. It needs to directly conflict with these international seasons, so players have to choose, because right now, the WNBA is acting like a minor league that happens to have NBA backing.
The Rolexes, the black diamonds as gifts from our, you know, our owners over there, Russian owners, chefs, drivers, beautiful apartments. We flew charter. We were treated like professional athletes over there. And with that being said, it was still overseas. I mean, I was still playing in Ekaterinburg, Russia. My daughter's first school was in Russia. She spoke Russian. And I'm grateful for the experience. And honestly, like if I had it to do over again, those are the options. Do I wish I could have stayed stateside? Do I wish I could have had an off season to work on stuff? Yes, but that's how
Made a living.
made my money, yeah.
All right, you guys.
Think about how the NBA works with international talent. Luka Doncic could play in Europe, Giannis could play in Greece. Nikola Jokic could play in Serbia. All three of those players are from countries with professional basketball leagues. But they play in America because the NBA is the Premier League. It pays the most, and it offers the best competition. That's the model. You don't become the Premier League by asking nicely or by arguing that respect equals salary. You become the Premier League by being undeniably the best option. And right now, the WNBA isn't structured to be that. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud. The WNBA has been subsidized by the NBA for 29 years, and it's still not profitable. That's not a moral judgment. That's just a fact. The new CBA proposal includes massive salary increases, better travel conditions, improved benefits, and a complete restructuring of revenue sharing. The league is offering to give players 50% of revenue once certain thresholds are hit. 50%, that's the same split NBA players get. But the Players Association is pushing back, and some of that pushback is based on arguments that don't hold up under scrutiny. When Candace says people respect people with zeros at the end of their checks, she's making a cultural observation, not a business argument. And when you're negotiating a collective bargaining agreement, you need business arguments. You need to demonstrate value. You need to show that the investment will generate returns. Saying pay us more so people will respect us isn't a compelling case to present to team owners who are already losing money. Let's talk about what actually changed in the WNBA over the past 2 seasons. Caitlin Clark happened. That's not diminishing anyone else's contributions. That's acknowledging reality. The Fever's games averaged 3 times the viewership of other WNBA games. When Clark played, arenas sold out. When she didn't, they did. Her rookie season generated more revenue for the league than any season in WNBA history. That's the kind of value that justifies salary increases. That's the kind of impact that makes owners willing to invest more money. But here's the uncomfortable truth. One player shouldn't be responsible for carrying an entire league's financial viability. The WNBA needs multiple stars who can drive viewership. It needs better marketing. It needs to stop highlighting drama and controversy over actual basketball excellence. It needs referees who don't become the story every other game. It needs a media strategy that isn't constantly defensive and reactive. These are structural problems that salary increases won't fix. Candace mentioned that lockouts only hurt players, and Matt Barnes agreed that they hurt owners too. But in the WNBA's case, a lockout would be catastrophic for players in a way it wouldn't be for owners. NBA owners own WNBA teams as passion projects, not primary revenue sources. They can absorb a lost season. Players can't. Players have maybe a 10-year window to maximize their earnings. Losing even one season is devastating. That's leverage the owners have, and everyone knows it. The comparison to NIL money is interesting because it actually undermines the salary argument. College players are making 6 and 7 figures from endorsements before they ever play professionally. Paige Bueckers has made more from NIL deals than she'll make in her first WNBA contract. That's not because the WNBA is undervaluing her. That's because the market for college basketball, particularly women's college basketball, has exploded in ways that the professional league hasn't matched. The solution isn't to force the WNBA to match NIL money. The solution is to figure out why college women's basketball is more marketable than the professional version, and fix those problems. When Candace talks about waiting and how women are always told to wait, she's tapping into real frustration. But the NBA didn't become the Premier League overnight. It took decades of financial losses, failed teams, and near bankruptcy before it became profitable. The league nearly folded multiple times in its early years. The difference is that the NBA had to survive on its own. The WNBA has had the safety net of NBA ownership, which is both a blessing and a curse. It means the league survived when it probably shouldn't have. But it also means it never had to develop the same financial discipline and market awareness that the NBA was forced to learn. The new CBA proposal isn't perfect, but it's substantial. It more than doubles maximum salaries. It provides full off-season pay. It improves travel conditions, which has been a major complaint. It increases the revenue share. These aren't token gestures. These are significant investments in the league's future, but they're contingent on the league continuing to grow. And growth isn't guaranteed just because you increase salary. Here's the question that needs to be asked. If the WNBA implements all these salary increases and the viewership doesn't continue to grow, what happens then? If the Caitlin Clark bump turns out to be temporary, if ratings drop back to pre-2024 levels, if attendance returns to normal, who absorbs those losses? The owners who are already subsidizing the league. At some point, that's not sustainable. No matter how much anyone believes in the mission. The reality is that professional sports leagues are businesses, and businesses need to generate revenue to justify expenses. The WNBA is asking for Premier League salaries, while still operating like a developmental league in terms of season length, schedule conflicts, and market penetration. You can't have it both ways. Either commit to being the Premier League by extending the season, demanding exclusivity, and forcing players to choose between the WNBA and overseas money, or accept that the league is still in a growth phase and salaries will reflect that reality. Candace Parker is one of the greatest players in WNBA history. Her perspective matters, but this interview reveals the disconnect between player expectations and business realities. Respect isn't purchased with salary increase. Respect is earned through product quality, consistent excellence, and market demand. The WNBA has made massive strides in all 3 areas over the past 2 seasons. But sustainable growth requires more than one transcendent It requires systemic changes that go far beyond collective bargaining agreement. So here's my question for you. Should the WNBA prioritize player salaries, even if it means risking the league's long-term financial stability? Or should they take a more conservative approach that ensures the league survives another 30 years? Because those are the actual stakes here. This isn't about respect or recognition. This is about whether the WNBA can build a sustainable business model that supports premier salaries without requiring permanent subsidies from the end. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you found this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button because we're going to keep following this CBA situation as it develops.